So this is from Aesop's Fables, and it's number 189 on page 172. The story is called The Caged Bird and the Bat. A songbird was confined in a cage which hung outside a window, and had a way of singing at night when all other birds were asleep. One night a bat came and clung to the bars of the cage, and asked the bird why she was silent by day and sang only at night. "I have a very good reason for doing so," the bird said. "It was once when I was singing in the daytime that a fowler was attracted by my voice, and set his nets for me, and caught me. Since then I have never sung, except by night." But the bat replied, "It is no use your doing that now, when you're a prisoner. If only you had done so before you were caught, you might still have been free." And the moral of that story is precautions are useless after the event. Now, in that particular story, it makes perfect sense to say something along those lines, especially considering that after you're caught and put in a cage, there's generally not too much that you yourself can do. However, oftentimes, what's the saying? Hindsight is 50-50, or something along those lines. It's the same sort of idea. Thus, what I would recommend is taking precaution and preparing beforehand, possibly having some sort of plan in case of an emergency. And you don't have to cover everything. For example, I live in New Jersey, so the likelihood that I'm going to have to plan for a volcanic eruption is pretty much zero. It's nil. There's pretty much no chance of us having a volcanic eruption in New Jersey. If one happens, that would be something phenomenal, to say the very least. In any case, having band-aids or some sort of ointment on you, anything like that, not a bad choice, especially if you're going hiking or something like that. Worst comes to worst, somebody else might need them, and you have them. And generally speaking, if everybody has a little bit of this or a little bit of that on them, guess what? You end up in a situation where pretty much everyone's covered. Do you have to help everyone? Well, I mean, I would help somebody in need. I wouldn't extend myself to help somebody who doesn't need something, or doesn't say that they need something, or doesn't look like they need something, because that's a waste, essentially. But in any case, that's all on that story, and that'll be that. So when it comes to philosophy, morals, aphorisms, etc., generally the idea is to convey some sort of meaning. And whether your own moral system is based upon religion or based upon any number of things, I mean, if it's purely rationalistic, arguably, you should be okay to an extent. What I would say essentially is when it comes to society and things like that, the smoothest running societies generally have a pretty well-oiled system based in reason, not on force, because forcing things almost always ends up destroying them. And generally speaking, the more control you try to implement, the higher the costs, not only on those trying to keep control, but on society have an impact. With that in mind, if you are to teach certain aphorisms and ideas, especially in a gradation based upon the understanding and appreciation of them that you have in your given society, you'll end up with something a lot better off in the long run. What I mean is, you wouldn't want to teach people how to be extremely clever if what they're going to use their intelligence for is stealing money. So in other words, if people seem like they're honest, good people, teach them a little bit, see what they do, and teach them more. And you're obviously not going to teach a thief how to be a better thief, or give a thief the implements to become a better thief. However, you are going to want to promote and work towards goodwill for good people, because generally speaking, good people are the kinds of neighbors and or people who are going to extend themselves when you are in need. When you have a flat tire and somebody pulls up beside you, excuse me, and they offer to help you jack up your tire and or fix it, and, well, you need the help in that sort of a situation, awesome. Otherwise, I mean, you can rely on things like AAA, which are not bad systems. In fact, I've utilized something like that. The problem is, in a society that's pretty well oiled, where people trust each other and work together, you're going to have less need for things like that. Or perhaps you can utilize professionals like that in those sorts of situations. It really, I don't know. There's a lot to it, to say the very least. The goal is to create functioning societies with rational people who don't do things, and whether or not you like it, when it comes to certain things and or rules, like the Ten Commandments, for example, there is quite a bit of logic in there. For example, you shouldn't steal things. Why? Because when you steal things, you put yourself in danger, i.e., if you get caught, depending on the situation and the rules in the area, you might lose an arm, be imprisoned. Depending on what it is, you might have a worse penalty. Or, for all you know, there's somebody waiting inside the place you plan on thieving with a gun, and then you lose your life. So, I mean, granted, if you do get away with it, you might feel as though you won, but you've just robbed somebody of something they need or possibly need to move forward and or do good things, assuming that they accumulated their wealth and or knowledge, whatever, via their own hard work. Doing so is going to be a disservice to you in the long run, almost certainly. But that gets into a whole realm of stuff that is not easy to explain, involving ripples, etc. Uh, Simply put, when you steal something, you're likely going to injure at least one person. When you steal something, you also take the risk of injuring yourself. Uh, Next moralistic idea from the Ten Commandments: adultery. Thou shalt not commit adultery. The idea is pretty simple. You don't want to be screwing around with somebody else's woman or somebody else's man, or with a woman or a man if you have, well, your own partner. And that's for a number of reasons. Number one, sexually transmitted infections. You risk infecting both you and your partner if the other person involved has one. Uh, Arguably, that isn't a risk if you have a very clean society and or everybody in your society has zero disease. However, we live in the real world where people have disease, etc. With that in mind, that is the most basic of risks if you are a little more loose in your morals, to say the very least. When it comes to other things involving cheating, etc., there's also the likelihood that you're going to spark some sort of a feud between you and your partner, or a feud between you and your lady slash guy friend that's on the side. You're essentially creating a situation where in which there's going to be bad feelings between you and someone else. Thus, again, you're creating this negativity that doesn't need to be there. Um, Arguably, if you wanted to, you could have a system society and or collective of people who discern or decide that it's okay for them all to get along and, well, get with other people's partners, or maybe it's expected. However, I don't know how I feel about that personally because of some of the earlier mentioned risks, i.e., STIs, which are prevalent worldwide, not just in one country, and certainly not in just one branch of society. It's not something that, oh, you're going to get an STI if you visit a prostitute. You could get an STI from somebody who's creme de la creme of society and never even realize it. That's the funny thing about it. I mean, fate and things like that, they just occur. You can't really stop them. And depending on the kinds of risks you take and the kinds of protections you take, whether it be preparing and or understanding that certain people are looking for certain things and will take certain things from you if given the opportunity, those sorts of things can help you. And again, teach kids who are good these sorts of things. You don't want bad kids. Well, I'm not going to say bad kids. It's harder to discern, especially at the childhood level, what a kid is going to end up doing. But I mean, you teach kids based upon not their intellect per se, because people who are naturally intelligent seek out more information anyway. You want to look for people who are naturally good, who are going to help you in society. Because for all the greed and everything that's in the world, guess what? I mean, you kill the third rock from the sun, you die off anyway. It's not a big deal. Um, that goes for anyone in any level of society. I'm going to take a break here. And in any case, if I stop, have a great day.